Okay. Hi, hello. I'm your host, Danny Roman. Welcome to the Fat Girl Experience. Round of applause. We will be touching on topics like dating, beauty standards, dress coding, etc. The Fat Girl Experience encapsulates our experience as plus-size femmes in straight spaces and queer spaces, and how we've been objectified, experienced fat phobia, struggle with differing beauty standards, and the safe spaces we've created in spite of it all. And we will now welcome our beautiful starry co-host, Asha Romero-Gunn.
Hi. Thank you.
So exciting, so exciting.
I'm excited to touch on these topics and I don't know, I feel like that intro was a beautiful synopsis of just the tip of the iceberg on what we're gonna uncover today.
Right, right.
I'm excited.
Okay. First off, right?
hmm
What is a fat girl experience for you?
I feel like the Fat Girl Experience is an experience. Like, you know what I mean?
If you like that.
It's something that the girls who get it, and the girls who don't.
Real.
You have to have lived being a plus size person in order to truly understand all the depth of being a fat person. For me, I feel like it's had its positives and its negatives. I love being a fat person, but just sometimes I wish I could just disappear. Like I wish like I could no one can see me.
I love the way you said that because a lot of the times I like forget that I'm fat and not in like a oh I think I'm a skinny queen kind of way, but more
Yeah.
like that's not at the like forefront of my brain. Like I'm worried about like a million other things. I just am fat, you know?
Right.
And so like when people start to acknowledge it in like a degrading way, of course, then it becomes an issue. And like that's why it's so upsetting. Because it's just like why can't I just be fat? Why can't we just be indifferent about it? Because I'm not sitting there like, oh yeah, like, oh you have anxiety, yeah, because you're skinny. You know what I mean? Like that's
No,
just so
yeah.
random.
Because it's because I've experienced my life already this way. Like I'm not always constantly thinking about my weight, but when it's brought up and it's in a negative light, it's like, oh wow, I wish I wasn't fat. Actually, I wish I wasn't a part of this conversation. Why is my body the topic? Let's change.
Literally, literally.
I guess that leads us to what is femininity to you?
I think femininity for me is a little obscure because, like, you know, we play with tarot and stuff like that. So there's like a spiritual aspect, but then we're
Right.
also like both trans. So there's like an
hmm
actual literal gender aspect of it. And I realized that my definition of femininity is very heteronormative. Femininity is soft. It's not necessarily weak, but like it's being able to be vulnerable, being able to be in touch with your emotions, delicate. I hate that there's always inherently something wrong or negative about being feminine. I think there's a lot of beauty and strength in being feminine, and like that's why those who are in touch with their femininity are a lot like more emotionally resilient.
For me, I have a completely different view on femininity than you did. I thought we had a similar one, honestly.
Okay.
The way that I grew up with an openly queer family, I guess you could say. Like, my uncle's gay, my mom's bi, like, it's no secret. Also, like, we're Latina. I've
Yeah.
always seen women to be strong, like, to be beautiful.
Yeah.
To me, femininity is it's yes to be vulnerable, to be soft, to be pretty, but it's also like to be hard, to be strong, to persevere. Like when I think of femininity, I can see like the universe and all the stars aligning in the galaxy, but also like like bows and butterflies. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah, femininity is definitely like about birthing, and like not even because of the literal definition of birthing, but
Yeah.
because like with femininity brings like a new like innovation, creativity. Think about like fashion and stuff
Right.
like that. Like all of that is birth.
Femininity is serving life for
Literally.
real.
Literally. I also didn't realize that because we're Latina, that that's also part of why I view femininity or like womanhood more so like expression wise
Yeah.
as performative because when we like get ready and if we were to have husbands or if we were to have families and we have to get ready for family parties, it's performative. You have to doll yourself up. Not in a negative way, it's just who you are. Dress like husband, kid, matching outfits, doll yourself up and then you all get there and everyone else is like pretty much similar. I think that's what I love about it, expression wise. That's exactly how I feel when I get dressed up.
I like it, but it's also something that I despise within femininity. And I feel like it's something that we see a lot today in our culture, especially on social media.
But then it's like, then that's touching on topics about like gender roles, heteronormativity. Like, why is it that women are expected to, like, heavily expected to like adhere to a certain like set of rules that men are not expected to at all.
I feel like we're given these really crazy standards.
That kind of leads us to our next question. What does it mean to be non-binary and what does it mean to be a non-binary femme?
I feel like femininity coincides with being a doll. And for me, as a non-binary person, I feel like I've never felt comfortable enough to say I'm a woman because womanhood never really correlated with me. I was able to relate to it, but it was just something that I guess didn't coincide with my personal gender identity. Being feminine and being like non-binary are two separate things.
You can be feminine and you can be non-binary, and then there are times where like both of them overlap in your experience. For me, honestly, it's kind of the same. I'm always non-binary and I do experience aspects of my life or of femininity, but it doesn't describe me and my experience enough for me to be like, oh yeah, I'm a woman. And that's not to shame womanhood or the woman experience. It doesn't describe my experience at all. I experienced a lot of bullying growing up. I never fit the mold for what it meant to be like a cute little girl. I was always like larger than my peers. I was like growing at a quicker rate as well. They saw me as somewhere in between girl and boy. And it was always upsetting because I'd always wanted to be a girl so bad, and being a girl, you can't want to be a girl, you know?
I understand that. I understand your perspective and your point of view. I wasn't able to personally like relate in that sense. As a child, I never felt like I was supposed to be a girl. I already felt like off the bat I was supposed to be a woman. And I feel like that's what made me so uncomfortable with being a girl because, we develop and went through puberty at an earlier age than our peers. Like our bodies are just flourishing, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like all the men around me in my neighborhood, I guess you could say, in the community, always sexualized girls that developed early. And I think that that really messed with the way that I experienced girlhood. It made me feel like, wow, if this is a woman, I don't want to take part in it. And I'm not saying that I'm non-binary because I hate being a woman, because I love being in this female body, but it's just I don't think I could ever see myself as a woman because I kind of disassociated the woman experience from my brain.
I completely understand that. Developing early, going through, because it's such a weird experience too, because like in school, the peers our age weren't looking at us in that way, at least not at the time.
Yeah.
And yet older men outside of school were looking at us and sexualizing us and like viewing us as like objects like of sexual desire. And it was so weird and made me so like uncomfortable. And it's like in my head, I was like, I'm supposed to be okay with this. You know what I mean? Like, if not now, then eventually I'm supposed to like want to be an object of desire. I'm supposed to want to be something of like receiving male validation, and like that just made me so uncomfortable. Not to say that you have like in order to be a woman, you have to seek male validation, but it's just like it's so engraved in like heteronormative standards. To be a woman is to be derivative of a man. And so I guess that did obscure my definition and my self-identity because I didn't want to be that. It was hard because, eventually like you're in middle school and so you want the boys, not necessarily the boys, but the people around you to also find you attractive because they're finding each other attractive. And so I did feel left out. So I did try to like present the same way the girls around me did, but it never felt right. It was definitely always performative. Like I was just never a girl.
I feel like I went through the same thing, honestly. In middle school and in high school, for starters, I've always known I was queer because it was normalized for me as a child. I already knew that that was a safe option. You know what I mean?
And that's beautiful. That's where we differ for sure because queerness wasn't necessarily viewed like negatively for me, but I wasn't exposed to what it meant to be queer.
Right. I grew up like very young, like my uncle coming out, my mom like telling me like, oh yeah, like I am also bisexual. And it kind of like changed that for me in a sense. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
For me, dating in school was like, it was hard. It was weird. It was difficult and kind of confusing since I was exposed to queerness from a young age, meaning like I knew it was a thing and I was very comfortable within it. Before I even knew what being gay was called or what being queer was called, I did have an attraction to girls. Like I would look at Nicki
Yeah.
Minaj and Beyonce and be like, well, hold on, I want that for Christmas.
We
It was weird because not everyone in my school or in my life at that time was like as exposed to queerness, or some people were homophobic because that's what they were raised as. It's unchristian, like it's unholy. So it would be weird when it's like, wow, I have a crush on this girl at school, but it's like, do
right.
I say anything? Like, is she gay? Like, is she? Like, she might be. She looks gay. Hey.
Yeah.
Then you try and like talk to them, and she's like, I like boys, and it's like, oh, okay. Dating guys for me was like, I felt like I had to be a girl.
Yeah, like having to perform a role in order to be in the relationship with a guy, especially a
Yeah,
straight guy.
yeah,
Because a lot of times the boys were not queer, like remotely. For me, I didn't grow up being shown queerness. Like, I knew about gay people, knew about trans people, because there's like this trans woman in my neighborhood. I've never spoken to her. I would love to. I knew about it, but I didn't have any basis to understand that experience and to see how it fit with mine. And so going through middle school and stuff like that, because that's when you actually start to realize you have your own identity and stuff. I wanted to be a girl so bad, and I wanted to be like the other girls. I wanted to experience friendships and relationships like being a girl, like I'm supposed to be, and I just couldn't. A lot of the times when we would talk about like relationship issues and stuff, I would end up telling the girls how they're supposed to be treated and realizing like that's the role I wanted to take. I wanted to have the role that the boy's supposed to have, but also it's still experience the role the girl's supposed to have. Like, I was basically looking at them like wanting a queer relationship. I didn't realize that I was actually sexuality wise queer as well. I didn't realize that like, the attraction I had towards girls was more than friendship, because in my head I'm like, like I want a friendship with a girl, like I want us to hug and I want us to cuddle and I want us to like dress up in matching clothes and I want us to do like sleepovers and stuff like that, and like all of that is and wholesome and stuff like that. But then like the actual feelings I was experiencing towards my friends wasn't always just platonic. Like it was actually romantic,
yeah.
and I just didn't understand that.
I feel like being neurodivergent adds a completely another layer, but being like neurodivergent and not being able to differentiate feelings of platonic love versus romantic love is
Yes.
very, very difficult, because there would be times where it's like, wow, like I really love this girl. Like I love this girl so much. Like she's my best friend. But then it's like, wait, do I love her like a sister? Or like, do I love her like I like her?
Yeah, because after the 8th grade, when I had realized that I do like girls, and it was just such a weird realization, because I thought
Yeah.
the entire time that it was only platonic. Going into high school and stuff like that, and like realizing I do like girls.
It's something
Realization.
that you're not going to realize until later. Like now that we're in our 20s, we can look back on it from when we were younger, or we were like developing young queer kids, that we've always been that way. We just didn't know that there were words for it, and we didn't know that it was, I guess, safe enough to be our truest versions of ourselves. And that goes for both of us, because even though I was exposed to queerness in the sexuality wise, I wasn't exposed to queerness gender wise. Yeah.
And also not knowing what it means to be queer experience wise, like not having the words to describe it, and so
Yeah.
never truly understanding, but also now having the words to describe it. Not enough, of course. There's not enough queer words out there to really describe, especially in American standards, because the culture is still very, very patriarchal. To have enough words to be like understanding the difference between a straight relationship versus a queer relationship, and that broadening the terms for all of our relationships, found family, friendships, partners, like all of that changes so much.
The difference in being a woman or a non-binary person, or even a plus size person in general, being in a straight versus a queer relationship is so very different. It really is.
I think that a lot of the times in queer relationships, they're a lot more based on how you feel about the person, emotional, sexual, spiritual attraction.
Yes.
Like there's a deeper tie to it. Even if it was just friendships as well, like there's deeper emotional
Yeah.
value there.
And I feel like whenever that gets brought up, people are trying to say, like, well, do you think that a man and a woman can't have that same connection? And it's like, it's not that. It's that when you have someone that's experienced the exact same things that you've gone through, it's different. They can try and imagine, but they're not gonna, like, it's not gonna be the same bond, no matter how you
Yes,
try.
and it definitely has a lot to do with heteronormativity and the patriarchy and stuff like that, because think about how men are raised, how boys are raised. There's so many households where husbands slash fathers don't even allow the femmes in the house to leave their like period products around because it makes them uncomfortable. And then think about queer relationships. They're not gonna shame you for normal things like that, whether or not they can experience it as well. It's more like they were raised entirely differently, or they raised themselves entirely differently.
Right.
A man and a woman could totally have as deep of a relationship as we can have within our queer spaces, but it's the difference on how much they're willing to accommodate each other, you know? A woman is more willing to accommodate the man only because that's how we're like, raised on some real shit. The woman has to accommodate, the woman has to be the one who carries the plate of all the things to do, while a man isn't necessarily thinking about all of that. A man has a more, you know, selfish view, and not because he's inherently a selfish person, but because that's how you're raised. A man is tends to be raised to think mainly about his experience. What can he do for other people? What can other people do for him? Stuff like that. Like, what can he get out of it all?
For a woman, it's like it doesn't matter if you're on your period. If your man just got off of work, you better have fixed him dinner, rub his feet, hear about his day, clean up the dishes after you done cooking, his plate too, put him to bed. Cause yeah, you had a rough day. You might got off of work too, but he just got off of work.
Oh my God, yes. And then you better hear about his day, but is he gonna really ask you about yours?
Right.
It's not as likely. And then are y'all gonna spend time together afterwards? Like, is it gonna be an us time, or is it just gonna be a him relax and tell you all his baggage, and then him go do his own thing because he's too tired to have us time? That's the difference between straight relationships and queer relationships. And that's not to shame anybody. They can entirely have very deep and loving relationships, but it's definitely about the commitments and the what's the word? Like how much they're willing to give up for the other person in order to make both people comfortable.
Less ultimatum, more compromise.
Yes, there you go. That's the word. Compromise.
And heterosexual, like especially for cisgendered heterosexual relationship, it's a lot of the ultimatums. I know this sounds so biased though, but like in queer relationships, I feel like there's more of a compromise, more of an understanding and able to understand. Like I feel like I've been able to see your experience. I might not have lived your life, but like because we're both assigned female at birth, I can understand you on a deeper level. It's just something about a sapphic love that feels so much more divine, so much more true.
Yeah.
I don't think that anyone will ever be able to experience a love.
A love like mine, yeah. What a beautiful way to say it.
It's just something about a queer love that hits different.
People talk about it a lot, actually. I think this is a really good topic to touch on because people do tend to get upset and they think that like we're trying to shame straight relationships, and I generally am not trying to. I think to say I've only experienced straight relationships in the sense that I've only gotten the chance to date straight men. I've not once gotten the chance to date a woman or another queer person. And my current relationship is pretty queer, you know, considering the fact that I'm non-binary
Right.
and out. I've been out for 8 years, thank the Lord. But yeah, like people think it's like us trying to shame like straight people, and it's not. You know, like you are the default that everyone talks about,
So
but
I
you're not
have
our default. And I think that's the difference. That the default that they're still experiencing is one that caused so much struggle and pain for both men and women.
right. It's like a quote unquote default though.
Yes.
I don't think that straight is the default. I think it's just the societal quote unquote. No.
Yes, there you go. Sorry, I didn't have the words to describe it that way. I don't want anyone to think that I'm out here like, yes, you know, like I'm not the default. It's just a lot of people tend to view it that way. Like especially on social media too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a blueprint that has caused nothing but pain for both sides. Hashtag down with the patriarchy. But we don't adhere to those standards. Like a lot of the time, we're trying to do everything outside of those standards, and that's what makes us queer. That we're trying to break out of molds, out of boxes that have done nothing but harm, and also keep the parts that have made us who we are. That's why it's the Fat Girl Experience, in the sense that we're both non-binary to our fucking core, but we're also holding on to the femininity in which we were raised with.
Yeah. I thought it's a beautiful experience.
For sure. I want to shout out to all the strong, independent single mothers that helped raise me. Shout out to my mom. Shout out to my grandma. Shout out to my nana. Like, they had to do that shit with or without the man. I mean, not even with the man, for real. They were just with the man.
Heavy on that. The man was an accessory to the outfit in the background. I don't care.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Boots. That's the real thing.
Yup.
That's the
Yup.